Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Welcome to our February local buy training and vendor panel demonstration. Now, we were expecting to have about 15 attendees this morning, and at the moment, we have myself and Emily and Patricia. So it's a very small group, and I wish I could change the settings so we could see each other. But we can't do that at this stage of the presentation. Welcome, Robin, to our training this morning. We've got lots of content to get through, so I'm going to start off with doing some housekeeping with you. We do have cameras and microphones switched off. However, if you do have a question, please don't hesitate to post it in the Q&A portal, which is a button on your Teams toolbar. Feel free to pop any questions in there along the way, and they will pop up and I will be able to see them, and we will either answer them as we go through the content, or we may even answer them before we dive into the live demonstration of vendor panel. So let's kick off this morning. My name is Emma Peters. I'm the head of engagement for Local Buy. And we have some other wonderful members of the engagement team that I head up and manage. We have Liz and Jeremy, who are based in Brisbane, and they look after predominantly the southern half of Queensland. My name, as I said, is Emma Peters. I'm based here in Townsville, and I look after North Queensland and the Northern Territory. And Audrey Dobell is based in Cairns, and she looks after some of the councils around the Cairns region, including the Indigenous councils up the Cape. I'd like to also introduce you to our category management team. Shane, who looks after fleet. Debbie looks after construction and civil. Michael looks after corporate services. Sebastian looks after planning and open spaces. And Isabel is a trainee category manager who supports the category management team. So who is Local Buy? Well, we are a wholly owned subsidiary of the Local Government Association of Queensland. We were created all the way back in 2001 to assist councils streamline procurement. That means Local Buy is turning 25 years of age this year. And we're going to talk to you at the end of the presentation about what we're doing to celebrate that fact. We are a profit for purpose organisation, and that means any profit we make over and above our operating costs is returned to our owner, the LGAQ. And we also work really closely with the Local Government Association of the Northern Territory. They don't have their own version of Local Buy in the Northern Territory, but they utilise our Local Buy pre-qualified supplier arrangements. Let's have a quick chat about why Local Buy exists and what we do to assist council. So as you may be aware, as a council officer who's procuring goods and services on behalf of your council, you can't just go and do it. You have to abide by two pieces of legislation. The first one is the Local Government Regulation 2012, Part 3, the default contracting procedures, and these have recently changed. On the 12th of December 2025, the Queensland State Government have actually increased these thresholds. So a medium-sized contractual arrangement is now between $21,000 and $280,000. And if you want to procure goods and services that sit within that dollar threshold, you must obtain 3 written quotes. If it is likely that the procurement activity will be over $280,000, you must perform a full and open market tender. These are the Northern Territory thresholds, and the reason I have these within our pack today is that we often have Northern Territory council officers joining us for this presentation. I don't think we do today, but the thresholds in the Northern Territory are slightly lower than those here in Queensland. Now, if you've ever been involved in tendering before, you will understand that running a tender process is a pretty long and arduous process. I'm just letting someone else into the lobby. Welcome, Alicia. So as you will understand, if you've ever been involved in a tender, it's a long and arduous process, not just for you, the council officer, to put together and run that tender, but also for the suppliers to respond to. All the preparation of the tender documentation and the contract that you're going to engage the supplier under when you engage the successful supplier. You can't buy anything quickly because they have to be open for at least 21 days here in Queensland. You have to evaluate all of the tenders, and you might get lots and lots of them because it's a full and open tender. You cannot control how many responses you're going to be given. There is a risk that the preferred tenderer could come from outside your local LGA, and this sometimes can cause a problem with local content, which we know is incredibly important to our councils here in Queensland. We've estimated that the cost of tendering can be up to $20,000 for council to put together if it's a complex tender. And it can be up to $5,000 for suppliers to respond to a tender with no guarantee that they're going to win that work. Where does local buy come into this? Well, if you're engaging through a local buy pre-qualified supplier arrangement, you do not need to perform more complex quotations or tenders, regardless of the dollar value of that procurement activity, because local buy has an exception under Section 234 of the local government regulation. We're written into the legislation to say that councils don't need to perform a tender, even if that procurement activity was up to, say, $10 million. Just letting someone else into the lobby. So we have an exception within the local government regulation, which makes it much easier for you as a council to engage with local buy suppliers. Now, you still may wish to run a quotation process, a much quicker and simpler process, and you may wish to do that through our vendor panel online procurement platform, which we're going to show you the live system after we've been through these slides. Now, we currently have 52, I think it says 52 here. It could well be 53. How many should we show? We're showing 53 on my list at the moment, but we have them in various portfolios, each of which is looked after by one of those category managers that we spoke about on an earlier slide. So Michael looks after the industrial commodities and services, and we're not going to go through these slides in great detail. I just have them there so you can see the depth and breadth of the goods and services available for you to procure through local buy. Corporate equipment and services, business management, recruitment. We have 3 distinct recruitment pre-qualified supplier arrangements: office and stationery, marketing and media, and events. Fleet and field equipment is looked after by Shane, and that includes things like heavy and light plant machinery, bulk fuel, trucks, and vehicles. Civil infrastructure, works and asset management is looked after by Deb and Seb. That's Debbie and Sebastian. Deb and Seb has a great ring to it, and that's things like asset management, the supply of chemicals, mobile garbage bins, project management, and building and construction. Engineering and environmental consulting, LB312, is actually one of our most popular pre-qualified supplier arrangements, and that's actually going to be the arrangement that we're going to use when we do our vendor panel demonstration in just a moment. And finally, ICT, telecommunications, libraries, and our brand new disaster management recovery arrangement. Now, in addition to local government here in Queensland and in the Northern Territory, Local buy is also open to be used by some other entities. So we were set up, as I said before, by the LGAQ in 2001 to streamline procurement here in Queensland. But some other entities have jumped on board and realised that we've got these really robust arrangements in place, and we're more than happy for them to use them. And they include Queensland state and federal government departments, regional organisations of councils, water authorities and port authorities, charities and not-for-profits, and educational establishments. We've got lots of schools and universities who are already utilising local buy for procurement, which is great not only for those entities, but it's fabulous for our suppliers who not only have access to the local government, but all of those other buyers as well. Here are some groovy statistics for you before we move into the benefits of vendor panel. So last financial year, we're very proud that we hit the magic $1 billion in spend through local buy pre-qualified supplier arrangements in financial year 24 to 25. We had 541 buying organisations use local buy that year. And if you think that there are 77 councils in Queensland and 18 in the Northern Territory, there's lots of other organisations utilising local buy too. And 61% of all of that spend went through vendor panel. So let's have a little chat about vendor panel. So vendor panel has recently changed its name. It's going to be changing its name to Unimarket. So we've got on our slides Unimarket powered by vendor panel, and it is fairly new. This has only started happening really from the end of last year. So if I slip up and I say vendor panel, I apologise. It is Unimarket powered by vendor panel. It is an online procurement system, and our buyers can use the system to issue requests for quote to local buy pre-qualified suppliers and other organisations. It's a brilliant receptacle for us to keep all of the compliance documentation that we require our suppliers to provide us that you can view at any time. So we're going to talk about a couple of ways that you can engage suppliers and the benefits of using Unimarket. You can form a short list of suppliers via the supplier matrix, and I will be demonstrating that when we dive into the system. It reduces the risk of fraud or fraud accusations. Each of the requests for quote within Unimarket, here we go, have an open and close date, and you cannot see any of those responses until the quote has closed. There are, of course, predetermined open and close dates. You get to set those open and close dates because when you're engaging through a local buy pre-qualified supplier arrangement, it isn't a full and open tender, it's a closed quotation, and you can decide how long you're going to have that open for. There is an online portal for questions and answers, and this is another really, really great thing about utilising Unimarket. If a supplier has a question about your request for quote, they pop it into the system, you get an email to say there's a question there, and you can decide if you want to make that question public so all of the other suppliers get to see the question and answer, and it's not that you're having a big chat with Bob when he calls you up with his question. You inadvertently give Bob a heap more information and therefore a competitive advantage, which means that it's not a fair process for all of the suppliers involved. It almost puts you at arm's length a little bit from that process and means that it can be fair and transparent the whole way through. There is the ability to award and evaluate your request for quote online. So it's great for record keeping. When the auditor comes to you and says, Emily, please show me what you did for this particular procurement activity. How did you go and buy this product that council purchased? You can just pull up the record in Unimarket and show them what you sent out, who you sent it to, who read and responded to or who did not respond to that particular quote, what they responded with, including pricing, how you evaluated and awarded is all there within the Unimarket system. You can, of course, engage suppliers outside of Unimarket. You don't have to do a quote every single time. You can, if you wanted to, you can engage suppliers direct through local buy, but you've got to remember to include the local buy pre-qualified supplier arrangement number on your purchase order. Otherwise, you're technically not engaging them through local buy. Now, for any of the newcomers that popped in a little bit late, if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to post them in the Q&A portal in the toolbar on Teams, and we'll have a look at them before we dive into the live system. Some other benefits of utilising Unimarket for procurement are that it's a great research tool. As I said before, we can use the supplier matrix to identify which suppliers in your region are already local buy pre-qualified. You can view their insurances and pricing. Many of our pre-qualified supplier arrangements have pre-negotiated discounted rates attached to them. It allows you to target specific suppliers. You can review all of the conditions of contract, and you can monitor your request for quote. So you can see who's read the quote, who hasn't read the quote, and it gives the suppliers an option to respond to you to say, I intend to respond to this quote, or I am declining to respond to this quote. I do not have capacity to respond to you for this particular project. I'm out. And it gives you that insight into who is likely to respond and to that particular quote when it closes. I'll also show you how you can monitor that too. So within Unimarket, there's a few things that you can do. You can issue a request for quote, remembering that it's not a tender, it's a closed quotation using the exception in the local government regulation to engage a local buy supplier. You can issue a full and open tender. For the majority of our councils who've taken up local buy's offer for an upgraded version of the Unimarket system, and you can use the public marketplace. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of a public service warning about the public marketplace. The public marketplace is a business directory. Those suppliers are not local buy pre-qualified, so it's not subject to the exception in the local government regulation. So the next slide is going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. Marketplace is not a public tender. So it's a closed quotation to non-pre-qualified suppliers. So it's not publicly available. So be really mindful when you're using that public marketplace section of Unimarket. There are no options for other suppliers who haven't been invited because it's a closed quotation. It can't be publicised widely, as in a full and open tender, because it is a closed quotation. So be really mindful that you're not using it for procurement activities over, I haven't updated the slide, $280,000 when that large size contractual arrangement kicks in. And remember that that spend is aggregated based on contract by contract basis. So if you're engaging a supplier for the life of a contract and it's likely to be bigger than $280,000, then you would have to run a full and open tender or use one of the exceptions in the regulation. Now let's talk about fees. We do not charge our buyers, whether they're council or state government or unis or schools, to utilise local buy at all. It is completely free of charge for you. However, we have to generate revenue as an organisation to pay our wages and to keep developing and maintaining our 53 pre-qualified supplier arrangements. So the fees are borne by the suppliers. So they pay a small annual fee to be part of local buy. and a contract management fee based on the amount of business that they do through local buy pre-qualified supplier arrangements. Now, the average of that contract management fee across our 53 arrangements is 1%. Suppliers say to us all the time that that amount is completely negligible compared to having to do tenders and tenders and tenders if they were being engaged outside of local buy. It's much quicker and simpler for them to respond to your quotations, especially through Unimarket, rather than having to respond to lengthy tender process. It's also quicker for the suppliers in terms of speed to market as well. So how do we bring suppliers on to local buy? Well, we do that once a quarter. We open our arrangements as tenders, so suppliers have to tender to become a local buy pre-qualified supplier on the 1st of February, the 1st of May, the 1st of August, and the 1st of November. And those tenders are generally open for the whole month. So they are open now. We have 45 of our 53 arrangements open to bring on new suppliers. And those tenders will be closing at 2 p.m. on the 27th of February. We're really happy to work with you in terms of educating suppliers in your LGA about the benefits of being a local buy pre-qualified supplier. If you have specific suppliers that you would like to come on to local buy, please let us know. We're more than happy to educate them and help them start that tender process. Now, before we dive into Unimarket, I'm going to give you an update on a couple of our new arrangements. We have introduced a brand new arrangement for disaster recovery management, which is called LB505. And that is going to be very, very useful for our councils that have been experiencing a lot of wet weather over this wet season. Here in Townsville, we were woken up at 4:30 this morning by a huge thunder and lightning storm, and it's been raining ever since. But we do know that there's been terrible flooding further west towards Mount Isa, and those councils are starting to really jump on board and utilise that arrangement for recovery in those areas. Our old asset management and project management services arrangements had come to the end of their life. This is a good point and a good segue into talking about how long our arrangements last for. The majority of our local buy pre-qualified supplier arrangements can last up to 15 years. So we have the initial term is 3 years and we have lots of extension options after that. So if a supplier comes on board now, they may not have to retender for that arrangement for another 15 years, which is crazy. It's brilliant that they can do that to really reduce the amount of administration that they're having to do. The new light, heavy and light plant machinery arrangement merged two arrangements together. We had separate heavy plant and light plant, and they've been merged together into one arrangement for really big machinery, and then things like tractors and mowers and whippersnippers. They're all in one arrangement. And we have an arrangement, pre-qualified supplier arrangement. Bunnings is on 3 of our arrangements, and they offer in really good pricing. And that pricing is better than trade. So if you currently have a Power Pass card for your staff who go in and buy products from Bunnings, the local buy arrangement, it will give you much better pricing, on average 5 to 10% less than the Power Pass card. We're going to come back to this presentation, but we are going to move into having a look at the vendor panel or Unimarket system right now. And it's on this screen, so you're going to get a bit of an Emma side profile. And we're going to go through how to issue a request for quote, and also how to find out all the good stuff about our suppliers, like their insurance documentation. But before we do that, and while we're transitioning across, does anyone have any burning questions they would like me to address before we move into Unimarket? It doesn't look like it. So I'm going to share my screen, my other screen, this screen. And just to make sure that everybody is still awake, can you now see my vendor panel screen, everybody? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see it? Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much for confirming you haven't fallen asleep yet. So thank you so much for the thumbs up. Now, don't panic. Please don't panic. Your vendor panel probably won't look as complicated as mine. You're not likely to have all these graphs and things on it because I am an administrator. I have more information on mine than you will do. However, I'm going to show you where it will look just exactly the same as yours. So I'm going to go down here to supplier lists. This part of your vendor panel will look exactly the same. So you will have in here local by lists. So we're going to click there. And that's going to pull up all of the local by pre-qualified supplier arrangements that you can purchase from. Asset management, that new one that we talked about, all the way down to number 53, which is water, sewerage and storm water products. That's like things like concrete, culverts and pipes, or plastic pipes for sewage treatment works and things like that. So I did say earlier that we were going to use the engineering arrangement as our demonstration today. So we are going to pretend that we are Emma's counsel and that we're going out to buy some geotechnical engineering services today. So we're going to go here and have a look here at engineering and environmental consulting services. Now, remember I spoke about before that you can engage suppliers outside of vendor panel if you wanted to do so. And you would need to quote the local buy arrangement number on your purchase order. And you can see here that it's LB312. And so the number that sits at the end of each of these arrangements is the local buy arrangement number. Some of them you will see say NPN. NPN stands for the National Procurement Network. Generally, those pre-qualified supplier arrangements are being utilised by all states and territories in Australia, and they have more nationally based suppliers on them. So you will see specifically for trucks and buses and specialised trucks, so things like garbage trucks and things like that, that is an NPN arrangement because those suppliers work nationally across the whole country. We're going to go back up to engineering. If we click into engineering, it will tell us a bit more detail about this particular arrangement. It's a pre-qualified supplier arrangement. It doesn't expire until the 31st of October 2028, but there are lots more extension options available on this one, so it's very likely that will be extended. It will show you that there are the different categories, and if we scroll down here, it will give you the contact details of the category manager that looks after that arrangement. So if you've got any technical queries about that particular arrangement, feel free to reach out to the category manager. The next thing we're going to look at is these lines of blue buttons or bubbles. The first one will generally have a much higher number than the second one, and that reflects the number of active suppliers we have on that arrangement. For engineering, we have 740 active suppliers. If we click onto that blue bubble or button, it will bring up a list of all of the suppliers, and this is where we go to do a deeper dive into the information about a particular supplier. I'm going to pick on AECOM for a number of reasons because they've got some useful information for me to show you. It will give you their business name, the registered business name in ASIC. It will give their ABN, the head office address, a description about their business, contact person, and then down here it's actually got their professional indemnity insurance certificate, their public liability, and their workers' compensation certificate as well. For you to, if you click on here, it will open it up as a PDF and you can download them and save them. It also shows that this supplier has an office location in the Northern Territory. They are a local by pre-qualified supplier and they have ISO 14001. They also have a pricing schedule. If you click here, it will open up as a rate card. You can see how much the maximum amount that they can charge you if you're engaging them through local buy, depending on the level of engineer you require for your project. So this is excellent if you needed to do some prior planning prior to something going to market. I think I might need an engineer for a couple of weeks. You could have a look and see what those rates are. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that this particular supplier has some marked up changes to our default conditions. For every local by pre-qualified supplier arrangement, we have a set of GCCs and PCCs. Now, I know we love an acronym here in local government. So GCCs are the general conditions of contract. That's the contract between local buy and the supplier. The purchaser conditions of contract is the contract you can choose to use if you wish to engage that supplier. You can overwrite those by using your own council terms and conditions if you wish to do so, but please make sure you're letting the supplier know which contract they're going to be engaged under at the beginning of that procurement process. So you can have a look at their marked up conditions here in the system. There won't be anything crazy in there. There will be slight additions that our legal team have agreed with their legal team, and they're shown there for you. So that's all the great information that you can find out about a supplier. Also, which categories they've been approved for and where they have office locations and where they're prepared to service as a supplier. Now, we talked about in our slides, we talked about the supplier matrix. I'm going to stop sharing that screen for one moment because vendor panel's gone funny on me. 2 seconds. There we go. It just crashed on me there. Could be internet issues due to the big storm that we had. So we're going to go back down here to local by lists and we're going to look at the supplier matrix next. So as I said before, there are 740 suppliers on this particular arrangement. And you might think, oh, goodness me, how am I going to get that into a shortlist? Please don't send your request to quote to all 740. You could be evaluating your responses for weeks. We're going to click on the documents, which is the next line of blue buttons. So if we click in here, it gives us the default purchaser conditions of contract, the general conditions of contract, the specification that the supplier responded to when they became a local by pre-qualified supplier, and the supplier matrix. So we're going to open up this, and this will be a Excel spreadsheet. And it has in here when it was last updated. So this was last updated on the 10th of February, so only 9 days ago. And it has all of the suppliers in here and which categories they have been approved under on this particular arrangement. We're going to pretend we're going out for geotechnical engineering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter, yes, this supplier has been approved for geotechnical engineering. And that has brought the list down from 682 to 86, which is a better list, but still not a short list. Now we're going to whiz this way on the spreadsheet, and we're going to show our service locations. And this is where you hone down to suppliers who have a location in your area. I am here in Townsville, which is classed as the Northern region. If you wanted to click on the third tab on this spreadsheet to find out which region you are in, you can do that and have a little look and find out which region you should be filtering. So I want to only send this to suppliers who have a physical office here in the Northern region. So I am going to select yes, have local office. And that has brought my list down to 18. That's still quite a large list, but we do know that the engineers are very, very busy. So you may want to consider sending it to all 18 of those particular suppliers. Or you might know some in there that you want to send it to that you have past history with. But that is a great list. You've got 18 suppliers who are pre-qualified for geotechnical engineering services in the northern region here in the Townsville region. So what I would normally do is pop that onto my other screen, move that one over there. So when I come to invite my suppliers, I know who I'm going to be inviting. Now we're going to go back to the home. So click on this little house and it's going to take us back to our home screen. And we're going to go up here and we're going to say create a new request. And we are going to say geotechnical engineering services for Emma's Council. When you're making titles for your request for quote, I would highly recommend that you include your council name in there so the suppliers can easily see where it's located and also what it is that you're looking to purchase. If you use reference numbers, you can pop them in here. If you don't use reference numbers, you can just press save and continue. And we're going to be working through the request wizard before we're ready to save and post. We're going to use a local by list and we're going to press continue. And the next thing that it's going to do is bring up all of the lists, the local by pre-qualified supplier arrangements we can choose. And we're going to choose LB312 and we're going to tick on geotechnical engineering services. We're going to whiz to the bottom and say use these categories. It's going to ask us to reconfirm the local by pre-qualified supplier arrangement we want to use, LB312, and we're going to say use these lists. Then a big list of all of those suppliers who've been pre-qualified for geotechnical engineering are going to show up here. Now, I have got show all of the suppliers, but I could say only show me the suppliers that are within 250 kilometres if I wanted to. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to tick the top 3 and I'm going to skim to the bottom and say use these suppliers. So we're working our way through this request wizard. So now we need to tell the suppliers what it is that we want to buy. So I have a pre-approved specification document for my fake geotechnical services. So in most cases, unless you're buying something really simple, you're probably going to have a specification or a scope document. So all you need to do is put something in this top box, see attached specification. You can, if you want to, type in that box and give them the information there and attach something. That's not a problem, but all you have to do on this page is put something in the top box. You can fill all of this out in great detail if you wish to do so, and we're going to save and continue. This part is about asking any specific criteria or questions from the suppliers. If your project was subject to a very tight timeline and you needed these suppliers to have completed this by, say, the end of financial year, you could ask the suppliers that as a detailed question. Not that their responses will be buried within their response documents. It will come up as a separate answer and you can dictate that the suppliers must answer that question. Let's, for example, say, can you start this project by end of March and finish by end of June? So you can say, yes, this is a mandatory question and I require the suppliers to give me a straight yes or no. That may help you with your evaluation. If it's time bound and you can only consider suppliers who can meet your time frames, then that may be a really easy way of evaluating your responses. You can say, leave it as an optional question and you can have different sorts of responses depending on your question. And you add this question to the request for quote, so you're building up a bit of a questionnaire for them. So we're going to save and continue. And we are here now, we're on files. This is where we would add our specification or scope document telling the suppliers exactly what it is that we require. All you would need to do is press here, select files, attach the document, and away you go. We're not going to do it this is just a demonstration. We're going to save and continue. We're on to budget. Do you require the suppliers to provide a total cost when responding? In most cases, it's going to be yes. And the estimated value for this particular demonstration, I'm going to pop in as 25 to 50,000. Now, this is hidden from the suppliers as a default. If you had a grant, however, for say some play equipment, and you wanted to say to the suppliers, I have $50,000, what play equipment can you give me for that amount of money? You might want to show them what your budget is. Gives you the flexibility depending on what it is you're going out to purchase. So we're going to put $30,000 in here for our geotechnical engineering. We're going to save and continue. We only have 2 more things to do before we're posting this out to our suppliers. We need to set the dates, remembering that this is not a tender. However, I'm going to give you another public service warning here. If you do your timescale too short, sometimes you may not get very good responses or any responses at all. We know that our suppliers are super, super busy and they do appreciate being given as much time as possible to respond. If you're going out to purchase a truck body with a truck cab chassis with a specialized body on the back, like a street sweeper or a garbage truck, or a ute, a work ute that needs some special body, then please do give those suppliers as long as you can, because they will need to engage with the bodybuilder and get quotes from the bodybuilder for the specialized bit that's going to go on the ute or the cab chassis. So just try and be as mindful as you can. The system sets the default for 2 weeks, but you can change that on the calendar to make it whenever you would like to have that particular RFQ closing. And I'm going to set the time to be 2 p.m. like all good procurement people closing their requests at 2 o'clock. Evaluation period. After the closing date has passed, how quickly are you going to get back to these suppliers? I'm going to say 2 weeks, but if you do have to take these responses up for council approval for something, and that meeting is not going to take place for the next 4 weeks, you can push it out and say, suppliers, I'm not going to come back to you for 6 weeks with a response. The system will start to remind you to finalize your requests if you put too short an evaluation period there. This is the final thing you need to do before I'm going to go in and show you where you can monitor your requests when they've gone out. So you need to set how you're going to evaluate and decide on your supplier responses. So there's a quick select if it's going to be just a yes or no. If it was something really simple and you were only going to be scoring people on price, for example, you could just say quick select. The evaluation matrix allows you to set up a matrix where you put your ratios of what you're going to rate the suppliers on into the system, or a multi-party evaluation will enable you to have individual evaluators. So you set up an evaluation panel and you send them the evaluations via email. We don't have time in this session to take a deep dive into evaluations, so if you'd like to learn more about that, please don't hesitate to let us know. When are you going to cut off those questions and answers? Remember, we're not having Bob calling us up and you giving Bob lots of information or answering his questions. Bob's going to put his questions into the system, so you can decide when is the final time you're going to take questions on this particular request for quote. Do you want to be anonymous or not? This is where you can say, show my personal and contact details if you're happy to chat to the suppliers, or be anonymous if you wish to do so. You can then save this as a draft, save this as a template. So if you're going out to procure something on a regular basis, some of our councils who have bulk fuel storage top up their bulk fuel storage facilities approximately once a month, and they save as a template. So all they need to do is use that template. We need to top up our tank every month, or you can post the request. This is the live system. I'm not going to post this request because those 3 suppliers that I tick will think I'm actually looking for geotechnical engineering for my Emma's council. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save that as a draft, and it will sit on my home page until I'm ready to post it. So I'll show you where that will be. It's right here. All I would need to do is click here and complete this request to pop it out to those suppliers. If you would like to search for a supplier, you can also do that down here by clicking, and I'll do that again because I probably did that back in here, this section here, the supplier lists, search for a supplier, and then you can type in here the supplier name, and it will show you all of the suppliers and which arrangements they're on. So this supplier is on engineering and environmental consulting, and also planning, surveying, design and architecture. Let's have a look at monitoring the quote. I think this is a fantastic tool, which if you're doing business and inviting quotes via email, you would have no idea if the suppliers have actually got the quote, if they've read it, if they're going to respond, unless they email you back to say, yes, we're keen. So this is the live system. So I did a little bit of research earlier on a good one to show you. I'm going to whiz down here. These are all the requests for quote that have been sent out by our buyers recently, and it was one for the 16th of February. So it is this one here. So you can see for this, no, it wasn't that one. Oh, hold on. It was this one, I believe. Yes. So this council has gone out for some mulching. They've gone to 4 suppliers on our landscaping arrangement, and all of the suppliers have been notified. So they got an email from Unimarket that said you have a request for quote from local buy. You can see which person in the organisation read that quote and what date and time. So if a supplier ever came to you and said, I didn't see it, you can go in here and say, well, it shows here that Paul read the quote at 1:24 p.m. on the 30th of January. So you can see here all of the people who have read that particular quote. You can see that this council got 2 responses to their particular quote, but this supplier did that great thing that we spoke about earlier. They said, I'm really sorry, we're too busy. We're not going to be responding to this quote. And then this final supplier did not respond. So you can actually see throughout, whilst the quote is open, if your suppliers are reading and responding to the quote. The other thing that happens in the background is that local buy monitors the quotes, and we also chase up the suppliers and encourage them to read your quotes. They are business opportunities, and we want the suppliers to be making sure that they're reading and responding to the quotes. The other one that doesn't show on this particular one is that the supplier, whilst the quote is open, can indicate to you, yes, I intend to respond. The great thing for you is, well, it wouldn't be so great in this situation, but at least you would know early on, is that if you send a request for quote out and all of the suppliers decline to respond, you know you have an issue early on. Not like in the old days where you may go and open up your tender box and there's nothing in it. You'll be able to see that the suppliers are not keen on this particular project, and you can have a look at what are we doing here. Is the timescale too short? Is the specification not detailed enough? You can ask those suppliers, why are you not wishing to respond? So that's another great thing about utilising this system for procurement. Now I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to go back to my presentation. We're going to talk about another couple of things and dive into Q&As. But I don't actually have any questions in there at the moment. So if you do have any questions, now is your time to do it. I know there was an awful lot of information in there for you to take in a very short space of time. So if you would like some assistance with your first request for quote, we have a wonderful engagement team who would be more than happy to assist you. I often offer to my councils who I look after, I'm happy to do a Teams meeting with you. You share your screen with me so you're driving and we work through your first few requests together until you're really comfortable with using the system. Up and coming events. We are turning 25 years of age this year. We're not going to let that slide by without a big celebration. So Local Buy will be hosting a procurement conference on the 4th and 5th of August. It will be at the Sofitel in Brisbane, and we'll be putting out information about how to register for conference in the very, very near future. We run one of these training sessions once a month for anyone in your council who you feel would benefit from learning about local buy and the Unimarket system to procure. Now, any questions? It's very quiet out there. I've either done a spectacular job of training everybody or an absolutely terrible one. But if you do have any questions, you can always reach out to your engagement manager or your procurement people in your council, or you can reach out to me. I am more than happy to assist you at any time. And we do value your feedback. We put webinars on, training webinars on like this one on a very regular basis. So we would absolutely love to hear your feedback. What did we need to do? Was it too much information in a short space of time? Which I totally appreciate it is. It's a lot of content for me to get through without trying to make it too confusing for everybody. So yeah, please do give us some feedback. We will be sending out a recording. I'm happy to provide a copy of the slides for you. And on our website, on the events page, you will find next month's session, and you can register for that if you'd like to have another go. And we do sometimes have people who have attended these sessions a few times to make sure that they're really comfortable with where local buy sits in local government procurement and also how to use the Unimarket system. So Robin has said thank you. Thank you, Robin, for coming along and spending 53 minutes of your time with me today. If you do have any questions before we sign off, then I am more than happy to answer them for you. There is no such thing as a silly question. I am more than happy to assist you. But if not, I'm going to give you 7 minutes of your day back. Thank you very much for joining me today. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions at all, and we really look forward to helping you utilise local buy and streamline local government procurement in the future. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of Thursday. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.